No, I got to tell you, in looking at what they're doing here in Pennsylvania, it's all in the wrong direction. It's this lack of investment into our state system. It's the lack of investment into the commons, into what is ours, what we have as we the people. And I go back to, we've been privatizing everything the last 40 years, from roads to bridges to prisons, to parking garages, to water and sewer. Everything that we can profitize and privatize, they've been doing. And now here in Pennsylvania, I believe it's the state system of higher education. They're going to try and hawk this off for what they can get. And what's going to end up happening again is we, the working people, again get shortchanged. It's horrible. And what we need smart investment. We need sound policy. And that's why I'm glad to see that Joe Biden is talking about an infrastructure plan that will help us move in that direction, help us deal with the climate change problems of the future, and like the saying says, we're going to build back better. And here to share some thoughts on how we do that, I've asked Brian Lombardozzi to come talk with us. He's the Vice President of State Governmental Affairs at the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Their website, americanmanufacturing.org. Brian, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me, Rick. Appreciate it.
So, I'm looking at this plan that it's not really a plan yet. It's kind of just a leaked idea, but $3 trillion that we're going to spend on roads and bridges and 5G and moving the country forward. And also, I'm told there's some other stuff with, the family stuff. We need childcare. We need pre-K programs. We need health care. It seems to me that this is a big, bold idea to move us forward.
Yes, I think the president and the administration do have big, bold plans. We just got to see if Congress is going to go along with it. We've seen a lot of, politicking happening over the last, I would say, decade or so, if not longer, that kind of tries to put politics before sound policy. And hopefully we can get to a point where we can see this much needed investment, because I think, as you said, there's always lots of talk of privatizing everything, and these are all things that our money built, our infrastructure around us. We should be very happy that our grandparents and our great-grandparents built these things so well, because there's been a lack of investment for our roads, our bridges, our rail systems, our public transit systems. And that really kind of hurts our productivity as a nation, but also it makes people's lives just worse in a lot of ways. You're stuck in traffic going to work. You're waiting for the train, it's not coming on time. Your commute's too long just because you have to live in an area that's affordable for you to maybe drive into the city center where you work, and then parking on top of that and everything else. So we really need some really big solutions, and I think there's some really good ideas. If you look at the Build Back Better program, there's a lot of money to put towards infrastructure, and this president's also been really great about talking about making sure that money just doesn't go into the construction. So you see all the guys, good union jobs in the construction industry, but he's really pushing ideas like, Buy America and Buy American, making sure that the materials that we're buying to put into this infrastructure are made here in the United States. I think we're getting to a point that, if President Biden's successful, we can get the idea of, like, when people think infrastructure, they don't just think of the guy in the hard hat up on some scaffolding, but they might also think of the steel worker in places like Pennsylvania or Ohio or Indiana who, are making the steel beams or making the billets and the plates that are going to go into rebar and everything like that that's going to get made and put into our system, and really support a lot of great family supporting jobs here in our country.
Yeah, there's an opportunity here, and this is, we're coming out of a crisis, a global pandemic. We're coming out of an economic crisis, and the hope is that this gives us the spark that we need to rebuild our economy, but also to reinvent our country, to move us into the 21st century. Because look, I have people tell me, climate change is, we got like 10 years. I got other people saying we got 20 years. I've also got people who say it's a hoax and it doesn't exist. But most people think, hey, this is real. This is an opportunity for us not only to address the climate change issue, but to remake our economy to, like you said, make people's lives better. Make it so I don't have to go get my front end aligned every 6 months or every year. Make it so that I don't have to sit in traffic for as long, and make sure that we get good paying jobs. And this is why I'm thrilled that President Biden is talking the way he is about those good paying union jobs, because we could create a bunch of crappy paying jobs that aren't going to have any real economic help. But we got to have family sustaining wage jobs with good health care benefits, good retirement security, and family sustaining conditions, or it just isn't going to work as well.
Exactly. And I think we have some catching up to do as a country, because I think we've led for many years. But as you mentioned, with all of the sort of privatization that has happened and sort of the tax cuts that have happened, there's been a consolidation of wealth that's sort of left a lot of us out. And in that process, it's not just that working people have been left behind, but as a nation, we haven't been innovating enough to kind of keep up with new technology and cleaner ways of doing things that may be even more efficient. And at the end of the day, you see some people in the private sector who are moving there. You see investment moving there. So government really needs to go there. And I think there's a lot of good ideas. If you look at how the president on the campaign trail talked about clean energy jobs, he talked about it in a way that made sure we weren't going to be leaving behind communities that brought us to where we are today. And trying to figure out a way of, if there's an industrial facility that's not being used or a mine that's not being used, how do we repurpose that and create jobs for the community that could be part of the new clean energy future? Because if you look at how we make energy traditionally through fossil fuels and things like that, there are a lot of jobs tied into that. And we need to make sure that those people can, finish out their careers, have a good retirement, and have options to figure out a new path forward if they want to. And, making sure we can make those people whole, but also work with the people who live in those fence line communities around industrial sites who may have been left out of the process, give them a seat at the table to make sure that, the new products being manufactured are being done so in a clean way that's going to keep our air clean, bring the asthma rates down, and also be equitable and just in a lot of ways. And, by making sure we make these investments in the right way, whether that's expanding public transit, figuring out ways of making electric vehicles here in the United States, because there's a lot of jobs across this country in the auto supply chain. And if you've ever looked at an electric vehicle, there's a lot of batteries in that. And we don't make a lot of those batteries in this country yet. We need to kind of bring that manufacturing back here, and also make sure that when we're doing that, and, people are working out deals, be it from the trade arena or other areas of what domestic content of a vehicle is, that we're not leaving out all the great jobs in the supply chain for autos that, make the steel, the aluminum, the rubber, and the glass that go into a vehicle. So we really need to take a close look at that. And I think there's a lot of goodwill in this administration to do that. And a lot of people on Capitol Hill and in many state houses across the country that are willing to make those investments. I think there's just a lot of sort of, outdated thinking we have to push back against.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I was just reading a report from the International Labor Organization, the ILO, who said that they're talking about in the short run that there could be up to 24 million jobs in moving to a greener economy. And the question is which country is going to be the one that has the visionary policy and the will and the political courage to go after those jobs. And I hope we're in that moment.
I hope so too. And, with our partners at the Alliance for American Manufacturing, be it the Steelworkers Union or some of our manufacturing companies, we know that manufacturing is going to be a core part of those jobs, because there's a lot of steel that goes into wind turbines, be them onshore or offshore. There's a lot of materials we make here in the United States that go into solar panels, that can go into different transmission lines. And when we start talking about electric vehicles, charging stations, transmitting this, we need things like electrical grade steel. We're down to one mill in this entire country that makes grain-oriented electrical steel, and it's an AK Steel plant. I believe it's around your neck of the woods in either Pennsylvania or Ohio. And we need to make sure we support those jobs, because it's That's something we need in this country. That's what goes into making electrical transformers. We had a wake up call during Hurricane Sandy when a whole transformer went out in New York City. They had to figure out ways of bringing it in, and they couldn't find a domestic supply for it. So, as we see the world changing, like part of this whole climate change thing is we're noticing a lot more crazy weather events. We saw what happened in Texas. We see the fires on the West Coast. These things are going to keep happening, and they're going to keep challenging us. And we need to make sure that we're making things here, and we have a supply chain here in the United States that is going to be able to answer the challenges that we face as a nation.
Yeah, we need to have the capacity to answer as quickly as possible and have a rapid response. But you lay this out, and we're in this situation in a lot of things. Your organization, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, about 10 years ago, came out with a book about the size of a New York phone book of all the things that our military needs that we have to rely on other places to get. And then back then, it showed me how dependent we were on other countries just to keep our military moving. I think this pandemic has, I hope, opened some people's eyes that say we need to have domestic production for domestic consumption. We need to make things here again, and we need to do it quickly. And I hope this Build Back Better plan, which heavily emphasizes manufacturing, will bring some of that back. And with it, the jobs that we hear a lot of the Trump supporters complaining of, that are gone. Trump was right in the vein that, look, a lot of communities were left behind by deindustrialization and our horrible trade deals. So we've got to deal with how to get those communities back and how to do it better.
I agree, and I think there's been some really good rhetoric coming out of some of the appointees in the trade realm. If you look at U.S. Trade Ambassador Catherine Tai, who was just confirmed, she really wants to have a worker-focused trade policy for this administration. And I think that's something we desperately need. And I will say she has a lot of experience working on Capitol Hill. She had a lot of support from both sides of the aisle for that. But, she's also someone who's very familiar with how some of our trade programs have hollowed out our industrial heartland, and really figuring out ways of making trade work for manufacturing in this country, but also just realizing what manufacturing means to the communities that it operates in. Because as you guys know, if you ever go to any manufacturing facility, there's a lot of jobs at that manufacturing facility, but that manufacturing facility is also sometimes the heart of the community because of all those jobs, the lunch counter that's there, the barber, not to mention all of the jobs in the supply chain that go through that. There's family, my partner's family's from Ohio, and when we go back there, you can see where some of the auto industry going offshore has really kind of hollowed out a lot of the supply chain jobs that were there.
Absolutely. No, I grew up in Cleveland. And, I grew up in Cleveland as a kid, and you could drive up and down Brook Park Avenue where there was a Ford plant and a Chevy plant, and there were literally hundreds of small factories along that road that fed into those two facilities. They made screws, they made stamped out metal stuff. They made all kind of stuff it was local. They were able to have just-in-time inventory. It was all a little community, and those were all good-paying union jobs all up and down, and now it's all abandoned.
It is, and we can actually, I think what this administration is looking to do and what we need to push them to do and hold their feet to the fire on is make sure that, we gain the trust back of those communities. And when we're bringing in these new technologies, make sure that, if the government's going to be buying this stuff, making sure it's made here in the United States, make sure we have inclusive training programs that bring people from those communities in and give them an opportunity to have a good family supporting job, to have the option of joining a union, and bring that technology here. Because if we're at the beginning of sort of a clean energy revolution, we need to get that know-how and innovation back, and also need to make sure that, we do a lot of research and development in this country. We have a lot of engineering schools. We have a lot of think tanks, but we also have this entire Manufacturing USA program that works kind of spinning out new ideas. And we need to make sure that that doesn't fall into the hands of the venture capitalists and who want to make a major profit. And they go off. We need to see that research and development, but also we need to see that deployed on factory floors here in the United States, especially if it's our tax dollars that are going to fund it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that I think we forget about. Once the manufacturing goes away, The research and development usually goes with it because you need to be as close to the actual manufacturing to be able to tinker with it, and to make adjustments, as things are going on. And not to mention, not only that, when you lose those people who are actually turning a chunk of metal into something, or they're actually using a machine and trying to alter it to make it better, you lose that innovation. You lose the guy who goes in his garage and tinkers and comes up with a new use for a sewing machine that can figure out how to put chips into a certain item, as we've seen in the past. You lose that, and we need to gain that back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you also have to think about, in a manufacturing plant, there's the manufacturing and the operations side of things as well. For every manufacturing plant, there's a lot of jobs for electricians. There's a lot of other building trades jobs in there, of things that need to get fixed. And these are places that, like, when they get a new job, they're going to have to switch out the lines. I think there needs to be a lot of thought sort of put into this, but it's nice to see that Congress is finally talking about this. We might actually see some action next month, maybe in May. And, this could be a long drawn out process. They've got until September, until the money runs out. But I think there's some really good ideas out there. We just need to make sure that all of those ideas that sound good in theory, when the rubber meets the road, they're actually going to work for the working people of this country.
No, good point. Last question I've got for you. In looking at this, it doesn't seem like anything can get done in Washington. Infrastructure, building roads and bridges and all this stuff used to be nonpartisan. You used to be able to, every congressman wanted to bring pork back to the district and say, hey, look what I brought home. Somehow we've gotten to this weird world where the last, I would argue, 15 years, we can't get even infrastructure passed through. How much faith do you have that we're going to get something done?
I think we're going to get something done, just because at this point in time, with the economic situation in this country that we've seen from the last year of the pandemic, that the constituents are really going to hold people's feet to the fire on this. There's discussions amongst members of Congress right now about bringing earmarks back, which would help be able people to show what kind of money they're bringing back to the districts. So, people have split opinions on what they think about that, but if it helps get the job done, then we have some much needed investment, because I know that, like, usually in the before times, I spent a lot of time traveling, so I can tell you how much our infrastructure needs to be improved, going from different state capitals. The states have been trying to pick up the slack from the federal government for the last few years, if not decade. So, I think we're gonna see something. It may end up coming piecemeal instead of one major bill, based on the rules that they're going to have to use to get stuff done, to get agreements through. But I do have faith, and I know that the Alliance for American Manufacturing is going to be working very hard.
Good stuff, Brian. I appreciate the time. Great talking with you. I hope you'll come back and share some more with us.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. Brian Lombardozzi. He is the Vice President of State Governmental Affairs there at the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.